Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you today. I don't think there'll be many more mail hauls in 2023. I'm pretty sure that, they're petering out already. I had a few deliveries earlier this morning that I opened off camera, but there won't be many books in a day for the next week. Christmas falls on a Monday, I think, this year. And publicists are extremely hardworking people. They are the hardest working people in the publishing industry. So I wouldn't begrudge them at all if they wanted to head off for the holidays on Wednesday, Thursday at the latest. So they won't be around. And Christmas Day is on a Monday. You're not going to want to travel on that Tuesday, which would mean you'd be going back to work on Wednesday, but then New Year's Day is on a Monday. So I don't doubt that there'll be some publicists who will just leave their desk for 2 weeks, and they should. They absolutely should. But it's going to mean fewer and fewer packages in the mail. I got just a couple today that I remembered not to open, plus one periodical. I got the latest Harper's, which had high points, good things in it, and also disturbing things in it. There's a very, very long review of Mary Beard's new book. The longest review I think that it's going to get. I don't know why the review is this long. Just goes on and on and on. Who writes that review? It's Christopher Taylor who writes that review, and you can review Mary Beard's new book in 500 words. So if you're taking 4,500 words, you're going to go further afield than that, a lot further afield than that, and the author does pleasingly. But I'm just saying that 90% of it is not a review of the book. But for me, the standout piece in the article in the issue was an article by Michelle Orange called "If One Part Suffers," which was about it's the profile of a man who is suffering from body integrity dysmorphia. And she's in the car with him, describing his sense of humor and his divorce history and his likes and dislikes, and also the fact that he very much believes that one of his legs is not actually part of his body. And he would like the medical establishment to remove it. He would like that leg amputated, even though it's perfectly functional. And it's a beautifully written article. It's really, really well written. But it's disturbing, too, because, and the author knows this, she knows this perfectly well, you can't write about body integrity disorder without skirting the issue, the number one issue in the so-called culture war, which is currently lumped under the unbelievably noxious neologism of gender-affirming care. You can't write about this subject without bumping against that. This is a man who has two perfectly functional, healthy legs, but he is convinced that he's in a one-legged body, that he's in his two-legged body by mistake, that his essence, his self, all future iterations of any possible happiness are connected with him having only one leg. And he wants the medical establishment to acknowledge that and act accordingly. And the author she knows perfectly well that she is going to be butting against a politically charged subject. And I was hoping that when she got to, at some point, I knew at some point in the article you're going to have to mention this, right? There's no way in the world. The most blue-haired, blue checkmark progressive reader of Harper's in the world is still going to see the similarities between a guy who thinks he's born, that he is a spirit being who is lodged unwillingly in a two-legged body when he's actually a one-legged spirit, and the increasing number of people who say that they are a man spirit in a female body or a female spirit in a male body. There's no such thing as spirits. You're not in your body. You are your body. But nevertheless, huge numbers of people now say that. And of that huge number, a significant portion want to act on it. They want to act on it. They want to do things about it that aren't reversible. No matter what apologists with blue check marks might say, even so-called puberty blockers are not reversible. They're described as though, take this pill and your puberty will be delayed while we figure this out. But then if you decide that you want puberty, just stop taking the pills and it will resume like clockwork. No, it doesn't at all. That doesn't at all. You can't mess up your body's biochemistry on a fundamental level and then just reset the clock when you change your mind. No, no, not at all. But I knew that the author was going to have to she was going to have to talk about this at some point in the article. The earlier in the article, the better, because it's not her subject. She's wants to profile this one guy, get to know him, get to know the horrifying choices that he is contemplating every day, what he refers to as Plan B, which involves laying the leg he doesn't want on a train track right before a high-speed train comes by, that will cut it off but hopefully leave him alive and within distance of a hospital so that he can be saved by a trauma unit. The article mentions that people who have this disorder usually don't take a violent route. Usually what they'll do is immerse the unwanted limb in freezing cold water for an enormous length of time, 2 days, 3 days. Agony. The first day would be agony. Because that prolonged submersion will make it go necrotic, and then it will be a dead limb. A doctor will have no choice but to amputate it. The subject of this article doesn't want to do that, but he doesn't want to do Plan B either. He's resisting doing Plan B as well. He would rather have the medical establishment do this for him. Now, the fact that he has hesitated for what he claims is his whole life, the fact that he's still hesitating, even though he's absolutely sure and claims to be miserable all day long, every day, walking on 2 legs, the fact that, as the author points out, 100% of the people who experience BID, body integrity disorder, also have a deformation in one specific part of their brain. All of them do. All of them have been tested. All have that deformation. They are, in other words, suffering from brain damage. When someone is suffering from brain damage and they stagger into a hospital and make a demand, you don't grant it. Instead, you address the brain damage. Despite all of that, I was reading the article and I was thinking, all right, what are you going to do when you inevitably get to the paragraph where you have to address the trans issue? You're going to have to do it. Your subject is so close to that. I say her subject is identical to that. When you get to that point, are you going to be honest, or are you going to cheat? Are you going to use manipulative language? And I got to the paragraph. Glancingly, over the years and recently, the political right wing has identified the disorder as a more specific beacon, a representation of the risks supposedly opened up by the freedom to express different gender identities and to modify one's body accordingly, citing the affliction as evidence that trans rights and gender-affirming care are the first steps along a slippery slope. So that gave me my answer. You're going to get to the point where you discuss the obvious parallel of your subject, and you're going to use cheap manipulative language. Because the people who are going this far along the path of so-called gender-affirming care are not modifying their bodies. You are not a Lego set. They're not modifying their bodies. They too want something amputated. Something healthy that works just fine, amputated. Using that terminology is the author's attempt to separate the mental disorder of wanting your penis cut off from the mental disorder of wanting your left leg cut off. Obviously, I think it's obvious that there is no functional difference between those two things, and that in both cases we should be looking at the root cause rather than granting the wishes of someone who is biochemically, I'm not meaning to demonize here, but biochemically speaking, not in their right mind. If 100% of the people who have submitted to mental tests, to brain scans, who want a leg or an arm cut off, all have the exact same deformation in their brain, well, then what about the people who are all the way at the end? I'm not talking about people who want to present differently. A man who wants to present as a woman. I'm not talking about that, obviously. Well, maybe it's not obvious. I'm not talking about that. That's just a matter of being comfortable in society. And for them, and for us, it's just a matter of courtesy and no skin off your nose. It's absolutely no skin off your nose. And before yesterday, we all knew that. In 1985, a coworker, you could work with him for 2 years. He could leave for 3 weeks, come back wearing a dress and asking you to call him by a different name. In 1985, no one at any workplace in the country would have thought anything of that. It's going to take me a while. I might slip up once in a while, but I might call you by your old name once in a while. In 1985, we did not have any concept of a dead naming, nor was it ever called anything worse than mass murder. Instead, I might slip up, but if this is what you want, we all like you. You're still one of us, so absolutely. It's no skin off my nose. If that makes you comfortable, then that's what I'll do. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the small percentage of people who go beyond that to saying, I have a functioning penis and I want it removed. Or I have functioning breasts and I want them removed. Because they don't align with what I think about myself anymore. To me, if you have healthy parts of your anatomy that work just fine and you want them excised from your body, like the guy in this article, you obviously have a deep-seated psychological problem. And I was waiting to see if this article would at least have the courage of its convictions to either say that or not bring up the trans issue at all. I understand why the author would do it. She must know that this article is going to be fodder for the alt-right. They're going to use it as a weapon against trans people. And she probably doesn't want that to happen. And well, she shouldn't want that to happen. But that's no excuse to lie about it in weird neutral language, modifying. What on earth does that mean? That is not what surgery does. Surgery does not modify. that modifying is part of an entire suite of language on this issue that people now use to imply an existing model that has some problems with it. We're going to modify these problems until we get to the model. There is no model. You are not a spirit inside your body. You are your body. but the article is pretty disturbing. So if you're getting the new Harpers, you might want to know what you're in for. I think probably the most disturbing thing about it was the implication at the end of the article. The article mentions that there are doctors out there who will do this. And the implication at the end is that maybe everybody should. That all doctors should. That this is no different. This is still just a matter of choice. That is, the minute I read that, I realized, of course, that is the direction that this is trending, and of course it is. That no matter what it is, you should have the right to do it. I can tell you as a matter of fact that if you walked into Massachusetts General Hospital and said, I know what you're seeing on the outside because you're a bigot, because you're literally worse than Hitler, but the spirit inside my body is blind. My essence, my spirit, the thing that lives inside my fleshy body is blind. So I would like you to remove my eyes. Which, that's not fanciful. A couple of people are mentioned in the article as wanting that. No one at Mass General would do that. No one at any hospital that I know of would do that. No hospital I know of would blind a patient, no matter how insistent they are that they want to be blind. Or that they are blind, actually, to use the reality warping, the gaslighting terms. They would all say they are actually blind. And didn't you notice? The implications at the end of the thing, I wouldn't be surprised if Harper's gets a ton of mail. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to write a letter myself. No letters to the editor in remaining 2023. But that was the one periodical, a very long piece on ancient Rome, and a very long, very well done piece on a man who is actually every day contemplating Plan B. Every day of his life, he is contemplating what to do with this leg he doesn't want. Eye-opening stuff. Riveting article. It's just, I want to warn you ahead of time if you're worried that, it's disturbing as well. But let's look at the mail. Let's see if we can, maybe the mail will not be controversial at all. It'll all be 2023. There's no chance of us getting any 2022 stuff. This comes out in February. This is a novel by Helen Humphreys called Followed by the Lark. A little thing, you can't really tell. I don't have anything to compare it to, but this is almost the size of a paperback. Here's a treat for you to read during the early days of winter and considering writing or talking about February 13th, the early days of winter, lining up perfectly with every mainstream meteorologist who's now just routinely say, winter doesn't really get started in New England until February. Yeah. This book is a new novel by award-winning author Helen Humphreys, inspired by the life, letters, and diaries of Henry David Thoreau. Oh, it's a historical novel about Henry David Thoreau. Oh, how interesting. Uh, okay, so composed in small scenes remarkable for their scope and brevity, this book is a novel of meditation, haunting in its quiet spaces in the way it imagines misconnections and our communications with each other, and the natural world, and the past, and the future. It shows how strikingly similar the concerns of early 19th century are to our own. Yes, will mother do my laundry? And reminds us to listen for news of change, the song of spring's first bluebird, reports of those who have heard it all, and the sounds and fearful wonders that come after. Okay, all right, fine. I don't know what half that means, but this is a Thoreau novel. See many of those. That's very interesting. That's February, and then we'll do this other package, and then we'll be done. Let's see here. So this also is going to be next year. Obviously, this is January 9th. All right, so these aren't that far off. I've been getting books in the spring. This is oh my! This is by Kyle Chaika. And it is called The Longing for Less, What's Missing from Minimalism. And it says it's got a new foreword by the author. So did this come out, at some other time? Oh yeah, this was first published in 2020. Do any of you know this book? This is a new afterword by the author. Okay. Less is more. Everywhere we hear the mantra. No macabre connection with wanting one leg instead of two. Marie Kondo and other decluttering gurus promise that shedding our stuff will solve our problems. They don't actually promise that, but that's okay. We commit to cleanse diets and strive for inbox zero. Oh no, I'm directly inculcated here. I also strive for inbox zero. Inbox zero is an attitude about your email that says that at the end of the day, certainly, you should have nothing in your inbox. You should deal with it all, because putting it off is not going to help, and most of it doesn't require much work to deal with. And ironically, inbox zero is most fervently preached to people with enormous amounts of traffic in their inbox. I have enormous amounts of traffic in my email, and it spoke to me right away. And I tried it, and I like it. I really do. I don't often achieve it, but I really, really like it. That email that you open in your inbox. I use Gmail, and Gmail very helpfully sorts things out. Social media, promotional material, junk mail, junk email, and then my actual high priority inbox. It sorts those things ahead of time. So I don't, I can look at those headings right away and fish around really quickly for anything that was misappropriated in one of those headings. But otherwise, it's much easier. And that email that you get in your inbox, you're thinking, okay, I want to answer this, but I don't want to do it now. It's going to be at the bottom of your inbox forever until you deal with it. And dealing with it is never as hard as you think it will be. You just have to set up some rules for your inbox. You have to set up some rules for your emails. I have several rules myself for my email. I get lots of email every day. I leave my email in every video on this channel, for instance, but also lots of other emails from lots of other parts of the world. And I have a whole handful of rules. If the person is passive-aggressive, guilt-inducing, and says either at the beginning of their email or at the end of their email, no need to respond, I delete it. Simple as that. If you're going to be, my Jewish grandmother and say, no, don't worry about responding. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'm going to delete your email. You told me you don't need a response. You're not going to get one. If a category or group of people in some category in editorial or personal or whatever, if they have been told by me once or much less repeatedly that if they send me 5,000 words, I'm not going to respond. If I know that they've heard that from me, then if I get an email that's 5,000 words long, I delete it unread. I'm not going to do doctoral dissertation for your email when you are abusing the privilege, when you are using email for something it's not intended for. And so on and so forth. The no need to respond is an easy one. Also, if somebody sends me an email that in no way engages with me. So whether it's a book publicist or an editor or an editorial assistant or a personal email, a person-to-person email. If somebody sends me an email that is just proclamation after proclamation and then the end, their intent is clearly that I will simply respond to those proclamations, but I'm not going to. If it doesn't interact with me, then it's not part of my email. So just delete those as well. And even when I enact those basic rules, there's still a lot. There's still a lot, and I do strive for inbox zero. Oh my! All right. Well, I don't think that's the same thing as a cleansing diet. I really don't. Amid the frantic pace and distraction of everyday life, we covet silence. Do we? I don't. my little bee never shuts up. Is that her face? That is her face. And airy, Instagrammable spaces in which to enjoy it. Popular terms for this brand of upscale austerity, minimalism, has mostly come to stand for things to buy and consume. But minimalism has richer, deeper, and altogether more valuable gifts to offer. In this book, which was first published in hardcover in 2020. Oh, is this its first paperback? Good Lord. One of our sharpest cultural critics delves beneath the glossy surface of minimalist trends, seeking better ways to claim the time and space we crave. The author's search leads him to the philosophical and spiritual origins of minimalism, and to the stories of artists such as Agnes Martin and Donald Judd, composers such as John Cage and Julius Eastman. Composers such as John Cage. Okay. Architects and designers, visionaries and misfits. As the author looks anew at their extraordinary lives and explores the spaces where they worked, he reminds us that what we most require is presence, not absence. The result is an elegant synthesis of our minimalist desires and our profound emotional needs. Okay, well, I don't think I ever saw this in 2020. Of course, 2020 was before the minimalist craze, so it makes perfect sense to bring this out in a paperback now. I don't think I ever saw this. I'd have to check back in my on my videos to see. I mean, do any of you remember? Did we haul this on this channel? I don't believe that we did. It's going to be interesting. Minimalism is a very interesting subject anyway, for me. I mean, I make fun of it a lot because it is so crowded with grifters. The space on YouTube is so crowded with people who are obviously lying about being a minimalist. They are obviously lying about that. So they'll say, you know, this is all I need. Here I've got my extremely ascetic white and gray and black working space. There's a flat surface here. There's a flat surface over there. I have one bowl, one fork, one spoon. I have my iPad mini with its elegant display. I've got a tiny little cup with a cactus in it. I've got tons and tons of B-roll footage of me looking, you know, pensively out the window. I've only got the one window, etc., etc., etc. And those minimalism grifters will often make videos about the totality of the things that they have, and they leave things out, which is lying, which is grifting. They leave things out. They leave out the plasma screen TV that's 25 inches wide. They leave out, of course, any smoking. They leave that out completely. There's no vaping equipment, no sacks and sacks and sacks of cartons and cartons and cartons, and nothing like that. It's necessary for them to live, but they leave it out because they know that it doesn't comport with the lie they're trying to sell to their viewers. But to me, the healthy sister of minimalism has always been intentionalism. Not so much have less, but have exactly what you need and want. Identify, solidify what it is that you need and want, and get rid of everything else. That is, I think, an interesting way to look at the world. I think that a lot of us probably carry around a lot of stuff we don't ever think about, don't need, and there's no point in that, says the person with 6,000 books. Anyway, so we have The Longing for Less, a reprint of an older book about minimalism. And we have Followed by the Lark, a novel about Henry David Thoreau. So both of those are coming in the new year. And we have Harper's long article on Mary Beard's new book. Those of you who are maybe on the fence about whether or not you want to buy the book, especially in the run-up to the holidays, might want to read that article. I'm sure that it's online. I'm sure that you can... Well, actually, the two articles that I mentioned, there's a bunch of good stuff in this issue, but the two articles I mentioned, one on the guy who has body integrity disorder, and one, the very long, 4,500 word long piece about ancient Rome, those were two of the strongest pieces of writing in the issue, and I can never tell what will be the free stuff on Harper's website and what won't be. So you might want to, instead of doing that, you might want to go on Facebook or on Twitter. One of the routes that I used to take before I just subscribed to these things would be to go on social media and look to see if you have a link to the article that subverts the paywall. Some of them will do that. The author, for instance, might do that, might get permission to do that, in which case you could read these things. And they're fascinating. They're well worth reading. But anyway, that is our mail haul for today. This could very well be the last mail haul of 2023. We'll see. If I get bombarded and remember not to open things off camera, we'll do another one. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you.